Commander Olivia Bennett stood at the viewing window of Earth's orbital command station, hands clasped behind her back as she stared out at the stars. The notification on her wrist device had pulled her away from a diplomatic briefing just moments earlier. "Commander, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Frank Wilson, hurrying toward her with a data tablet. She took the device, scanning the information with practiced efficiency. "Confirmed sighting of an unidentified vessel approaching from beyond Neptune's orbit." "Yes, ma'am. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. The size readings are, well, they suggest it's approximately the size of Manhattan." Bennett's expression remained calm, though her pulse quickened. Humanity had encountered several alien species in their expansion through the solar system, but nothing that matched this description. Have they responded to standard greeting protocols? "No response yet," Wilson replied. "But they're decelerating, which suggests intentional approach rather than a passing trajectory." Bennett nodded. "Alert the Security Council and prepare the diplomatic vessel. I want to be ready to meet our visitors within the hour." 6 hours later, Commander Bennett stood in the conference room of Earth's diplomatic vessel, the HFY Concorde. Across from her sat the strangest being she had ever encountered. High Admiral Zornthal of the Galactic Empire had the general shape of a humanoid, but with iridescent blue skin and 4 arms that moved with unsettling precision. His translator device converted his clicking speech into English with only a slight delay. "Your species is quite peculiar," Zornthal stated, his large black eyes blinking vertically. "We have cataloged over 3,000 civilizations, yet none quite like yours." "We are honored by your visit," Bennett replied diplomatically. "Earth looks forward to peaceful relations with the Galactic Empire." Zornthal made a sound that his translator interpreted as laughter. "Peace is certainly possible. The Empire brings order to all worlds under our protection. Your planet will make a fine addition." Bennett's smile didn't waver, though her eyes hardened slightly. "Perhaps there's a misunderstanding. Earth and her colonies are sovereign territories. We're interested in mutual cooperation, not absorption." "How quaint," Zornthal said. "Your technology is admirably advanced for such a young species, but you must understand your place in the galactic hierarchy. The Empire has stood for 12,000 years. Resistance would be—" He paused, searching for the word. "Inadvisable." General Paul Garcia, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. "Admiral Zornthal, with respect, you may wish to reconsider that position. Humanity has a complex history with conflict. We would prefer peaceful relations, but we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary." The alien's expression didn't change, but his secondary arms twitched slightly. "Your weapons are primitive compared to Imperial technology. Our scans detected nothing that could threaten our smallest vessels." Bennett and Garcia exchanged glances. Earth's most advanced defensive systems were shielded from external scans, a precaution that now seemed prescient. "Admiral," Bennett said carefully, "I suggest a cultural exchange before any decisions are made. War benefits neither of us." "War?" Zornthal's translator emitted a tone of amusement. "There would be no war, simply acceptance of Imperial authority. The process is quite painless for compliant worlds." As the meeting concluded, Bennett escorted the Imperial delegation back to their shuttle. She made one final attempt at clarity. "Admiral, humanity values its independence. We fought against overwhelming odds before and prevailed. If the Empire forces this issue, we cannot guarantee your safety." Zornthal paused at the shuttle door. "Commander Bennett, I find your species fascinating. Such confidence despite your obvious limitations." He gestured toward Earth visible through the docking bay window. "The Empire has never lost a conquest in its history. Your warning is noted, but unnecessary. We will return with the Imperial Declaration in 7 of your days." As the shuttle departed, General Garcia joined Bennett at the viewport. "They didn't listen," Bennett said quietly. Garcia nodded grimly. "They never do, the first time. Activate Protocol Thunderhead. If they're coming back in force, We'll be ready." "And God help them," Bennett murmured, watching the Imperial shuttle shrink into the distance. Captain Ryan Miller paced the bridge of the EFS Defiant, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the massive Imperial vessel hovering at the edge of the Sol system. For the past 3 days, his ship had been running silent, gathering intelligence on the visitors who had quickly revealed themselves as invaders. "Captain, I've completed the analysis of their communications," said Lieutenant Samantha Collins, her voice low despite the fact that they were well outside the Empire's detection range. "Their encryption is complex, but follows predictable patterns." Miller nodded. "What have you learned?" "Their technology is advanced, but it's stagnant. The same designs have been used for centuries with only minor improvements. They rely heavily on overwhelming force rather than innovation." She handed him a datapad. "And there's something else. Their shield systems operate on a narrow frequency band. If we can target precisely, we might be able to bypass them entirely." Miller studied the information, a small smile forming. "Good work, Lieutenant. Transmit this to Admiral Harper immediately." Back on Earth, the United World Council was in emergency session. Representatives from every nation sat in tense silence as they watched recorded footage of the initial meeting with High Admiral Zornfall. Chancellor Ellen Reed stood at the podium. "The Empire has given us 30 days to surrender Earth's sovereignty. Their ultimatum is clear: join the Empire as a subject world or face pacification." Defense Minister Gregory Park slammed his fist on the table. "This is outrageous. They come to our system, demand our surrender, and expect us to simply comply." "The Empire has conquered thousands of worlds," said Science Director Amara Johnson, "but they've made a critical error in their assessment of Earth. They think we're divided and technologically inferior." On the main screen, Admiral Jack Harper appeared from Earth Fleet Headquarters. "Council members, I've received crucial intelligence from the Defiant. Based on this information, I've developed a defense strategy called Hornet's Nest. The Empire believes they're dealing with a primitive species. We'll use that misconception to our advantage." Harper outlined the plan, pointing to various strategic positions throughout the solar system. "We'll position our stealth platforms here, and here. Our fleet will appear minimal, drawing them deeper into our territory. When they cross the threshold at Mars orbit, we spring the trap." "And the civilian population?" asked Chancellor Reed. "Evacuation to the underground shelters begins tomorrow. The planetary shield network will be fully operational in 5 days." As the Council debated, Lieutenant Collins continued her work aboard the Defiant. Her latest discovery sent her running to the captain's quarters. "Sir," she said, barely waiting for the door to open, "I've intercepted their attack plans. They're not waiting 30 days. They're planning to strike in 15. Miller's expression darkened. "They never intended to honor their own ultimatum." "No, sir. And there's more. I've detected movement. 3 more Imperial dreadnoughts have entered the system." Miller immediately activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands to battle stations. Prepare for emergency jump to Earth. We need to warn Admiral Harper." On Earth, Dr. Nicole Adams worked tirelessly with her team, making final adjustments to the planetary shield grid. "The power consumption is still too high," she muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. "If they hit us with sustained fire, we'll have 8 hours at most before the grid fails." Her assistant, Ben Foster, looked up from his calculations. "What if we modify the resonance pattern? Make it adaptive rather than static?" Adams stared at him, then quickly ran the simulation. "Ben, that's brilliant. It would reduce power consumption by 40%. As Earth prepared, the Imperial ships moved into position. In his command chamber, High Admiral Zornfall reviewed the conquest plan with his generals. "The humans continue to issue warnings about their military capabilities," he said with amusement. "Such primitive behavior. They will learn, as all species do, that resistance against the Empire is futile." His second-in-command hesitated. "High Admiral, our scout ships report unusual energy readings near Mars. Irrelevant. Zornthal dismissed. Prepare the first wave. We attack at dawn. Commander Eric Russell stood on the bridge of the EFS Valiant, his face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. His small fleet of 7 ships waited in the shadow of Neptune, hidden from Imperial scanners by the gas giant's magnetic field. They're coming, his communications officer reported. 53 Imperial vessels have broken formation and are accelerating toward Earth. Russell took a deep breath. He was the first line of defense, tasked with bloodying the Empire's nose before they reached the inner system. All ships, power up weapon systems, maintain stealth protocols until my mark. The Imperial fleet moved with arrogant confidence, their massive dreadnoughts flanked by smaller cruisers. They had faced no resistance since entering the system, confirming their belief that humans would be easy prey. Enemy fleet will pass our position in 30 seconds, reported the tactical officer. Russell nodded. All ships, targeting solutions locked. Remember your training. Wait for them to pass, then hit their engines. As the Imperial Armada glided past Neptune, Russell gave the command. Now. 7 Earth ships suddenly appeared, their stealth systems dropping as they fired. Advanced kinetic projectiles traveled at near-light speeds, slamming into the unshielded rear sections of 3 Imperial dreadnoughts. The explosions were silent in space, but devastating. Direct hits on all targets, the tactical officer announced. 3 enemy capital ships disabled. On the lead Imperial vessel, chaos erupted. Alarms blared as damage reports flooded in. What happened? Demanded the Imperial captain, his 4 arms gesturing wildly at the displays. Human vessels, sir. They appeared from nowhere. His subordinate replied. Impossible. Their technology is primitive. The captain slammed his control panel. Turn the fleet. Destroy them. But the Earth ships had already vanished, jumping to their next predetermined position. By the time the Imperial fleet reorganized, Russell's team struck again, disabling 4 more vessels before disappearing. This is Commander Russell to Earth Command. First phase complete. Imperial fleet has been delayed and reduced by 14%. They are now pursuing us toward the Mars defense line. Back on Earth, Dr. Nicole Adams stood in the Planetary Defense Control Center, surrounded by engineers and military personnel. The Imperial fleet has passed the moon's orbit, announced a technician. Estimated time to weapons range, 12 minutes. Adams nodded, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Initialize the shield grid, all sectors to standby. Around the planet, thousands of emitters activated, creating an invisible barrier of energy. It had never been tested against weapons of the Empire's caliber, but it was humanity's best defense against orbital bombardment. In orbit, Admiral Harper watched the approaching fleet from his flagship. All ships, battle formation Delta. Remember, we're not trying to defeat them here. Our job is to slow them down and let them see what they're really up against. The Earth fleet was outnumbered 5-1, but they had positioned themselves carefully. As the Imperial ships approached, they were met with concentrated fire from multiple angles. High Admiral Zorn, Major Diana Powell crouched behind the twisted metal wreckage of an Imperial scout ship. Her team of 12 Special Forces operators were scattered in similar positions across the rocky terrain of Phobos, Mars's larger moon. Below them, the remnants of the Imperial fleet had established a temporary base on the Martian surface. Eagle One to Nest, she whispered into her comm unit. We have eyes on the supply depot, counting 8 guards and 2 automated defense turrets. Copy that, Eagle One, came the reply from Earth Command. You are clear to proceed. Hit them hard and fade fast. Powell signaled to her team. They moved silently, their advanced stealth suits bending light around them. Within minutes, they had neutralized the guards and placed explosive charges throughout the depot. Charges set. Withdrawing to safe distance, she reported. When the explosives detonated, the chain reaction was spectacular. The entire Laura Peterson had never expected to find herself on an alien ship surrounded by ancient archives. As Earth Intelligence's top historical analyst, she had been assigned to the captured Imperial Data Hub with a simple mission: find anything useful. But what she discovered went far beyond useful. It was revolutionary. "This can't be right," she muttered, staring at the translated text scrolling across her screen. The Imperial archives contained historical records dating back thousands of years, including detailed accounts of conquered species. She touched her comm unit. "Peterson to command. I need to speak with Admiral Harper immediately." 6 hours later, she stood in the war room, facing Earth's military leadership. Her hands trembled slightly as she activated her presentation. "According to Imperial historical records, humans aren't originally from Earth," she said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "Approximately 12,000 years ago, the Empire encountered a highly advanced civilization that called themselves Terrans. These Terrans fought a devastating war against the Empire." The room fell silent as images appeared on the main screen: ancient space battles, destroyed worlds, and finally, a small fleet of ships fleeing toward an unexplored region of space. "The Empire believed they had exterminated the Terrans," Peterson continued. "But it appears some escaped. The coordinates of their flight path match our solar system. We are the descendants of those refugees." Admiral Harper leaned forward. "Are you saying we fought this enemy before?" "Yes, sir. And there's more." Peterson showed additional documents. The Terrans nearly defeated the Empire. Their technology was comparable, but they had something the Empire couldn't counter: unpredictable tactics and adaptability. "The Empire has stagnated, while we've continued to evolve." As the implications sank in, a commotion at the door interrupted them. A security team entered, escorting a strange figure, an Imperial with unusual gray markings on his blue skin. "This is Caleth," explained Commander Bennett, who had accompanied the security team. "He was the Imperial archivist at the hub we captured. He's requesting asylum." Caleth stepped forward, his translator device converting his clicks and whistles into English. "What the human female has discovered is true. I have spent my life studying the Terran War. When I saw your tactics, I recognized the patterns from ancient battles." He produced a small data crystal. "This contains technical specifications for Imperial systems that you have not yet discovered, including the weakness in our planetary shields." Admiral Harper studied the alien carefully. "Why are you helping us?" "Because the Empire is wrong," Caleth said simply. "For thousands of years, we have conquered without question. But history shows the Terrans, you humans, were peaceful until provoked. The Empire destroyed your original homeworld without provocation. This war is the result of the Empire's arrogance, then and now." 2 days later, Commander Bennett found herself once again facing High Admiral Zornfall, this time via secure communication channel during a brief ceasefire. "Your requests for negotiation are pointless," Zornfall said dismissively. "The Empire does not negotiate with inferior species." Bennett smiled coldly. "Then perhaps you'll negotiate with an old enemy." She transmitted the historical files Peterson had discovered. "We know who we are, Admiral. We know what your Empire did to our original homeworld." For the first time, she saw shock register on the alien's face as he reviewed the files. "Impossible," he whispered. "The Terrans were exterminated." "Clearly not," Bennett replied. "We are their descendants. We've evolved, adapted, and now we're taking the fight to you. The Empire has never won a war against humans, not 12,000 years ago, and not today." Zornthall's composure cracked. The High Command must know of this. He abruptly cut the transmission. Caleth, who had been watching from the side, turned to Bennett. "He realizes now what the Empire has done. They have awakened their ancient enemy, one they barely survived fighting the first time." "Will they retreat?" Bennett asked. The archivist's translator conveyed a sound like bitter laughter. "No, Zornfall's pride will not allow it. He will double his efforts, call for reinforcements, and attack with everything the Empire possesses." Admiral Harper, who had also been present, nodded grimly. "Then we'll be ready." If they want to finish a war that started 12,000 years ago, we'll oblige them. The news spread like wildfire across the galaxy. On a dozen worlds under Imperial control, populations that had been subjugated for centuries watched encrypted broadcasts showing the mighty empire retreating from the small blue planet called Earth. On Proxima V, the reptilian saurians tore down Imperial monuments. On Kepler's world, the insectoid Mantidians overwhelmed their Imperial overseers. Across 20 systems, revolution bloomed as Imperial control weakened. Admiral Harper received the reports with cautious optimism. "Every revolution helps us," he told his commanders. "Each rebel world ties up Imperial forces that would otherwise be used against Earth." Lieutenant Collins entered the war room, excitement visible on her face despite her exhaustion. "Sir, Dr. Adams and I have completed the prototype." She placed a small device on the central table. It looked unimpressive. Just a metal cylinder with blinking lights. "This can neutralize Imperial weapon systems?" Harper asked skeptically. "Yes, sir. It generates a cascading frequency that disrupts their power distribution. Their ships will be dead in space within minutes of activation. We've tested it on captured Imperial vessels." Harper picked up the device. "How many can we make?" "With our current resources, 50. Enough for our main battle groups. Begin production immediately." On the Imperial homeworld, chaos reigned. The Imperial Council chamber, normally a place of ordered debate, had descended into shouting and accusations. "High Admiral Zornful has failed," shouted Councillor Drex. "His invasion force is in ruins, and now half our territories are in rebellion." "He must be removed from command," agreed Councillor Mila. "This human threat must be handled by someone competent." The Emperor himself, rarely seen in public, entered the chamber. The ancient being moved slowly, his once blue skin now pale with age. "Zornful remains in command," the Emperor declared, "but he will be given all remaining Imperial resources to crush this human rebellion." Councillor Drex stepped forward. "My Emperor, with respect, the humans are not a simple rebellion. Our archives confirm they are descendants of the Terrans. We barely survived our first war with them thousands of years ago. All the more reason to eliminate them now," the Emperor replied coldly. "Prepare the reserve fleets." But not all Imperial forces were willing to follow these orders. On 3 border worlds, Imperial commanders declared independence, refusing to send their ships into what they viewed as a suicide mission against Earth. The Empire was fracturing from within. Captain Ryan Miller stood on the bridge of the upgraded EFSS Defiant, now equipped with technology reverse-engineered from captured Imperial vessels. His mission was both simple and nearly impossible. Lead a strike team to the Imperial homeworld. "Jump complete," his navigator announced. "We're in the Vega sector, approaching Imperial territory." Miller nodded. "Activate the cloaking system." The Defiant and its small escort of 5 ships vanished from sensors, slipping deeper into Imperial space. Their mission wasn't to attack the homeworld directly. Even with their new technology, that would be suicide. Instead, they would deploy Lieutenant Collins' neutralizer devices at key defensive positions, creating a pathway for the main Earth fleet. As they approached the Imperial core systems, Miller was shocked by what they encountered. "Sir, sensors are showing Imperial vessels firing on each other," reported his tactical officer. Miller stared at the screen. "Civil war," he said quietly. "The Empire is fighting itself." Kaleth, who had joined the mission as an advisor, nodded. "This was inevitable. The Empire has ruled through fear for millennia. Now that fear is broken." Miller saw their opportunity. "All ships, adjust course. We'll use this chaos as cover to reach our deployment points." As the human ships slipped through the fighting Imperial forces, Earth's main fleet made its move. Led by Admiral Harper, 300 vessels jumped into Imperial space, targeting key military installations and shipyards. Back on Earth, Commander Bennett addressed the United World Council, providing updates on the war effort. "The Galactic Empire is collapsing," she explained. Multiple species have declared independence and are requesting Earth's protection. We have an unprecedented opportunity to reshape the galactic order. Chancellor Reed considered this. What are you proposing, Commander? A new alliance, Bennett replied. A galactic council of free worlds, with Earth as a founding member. Not an empire, but a true confederation of equals. As the council debated this proposal, Captain Miller's team completed their mission, deploying the neutralizers throughout the Imperial Defense Network. The path to the homeworld was open. The Imperial Palace gleamed in the light of 3 suns, its crystalline spires reaching toward the purple sky. For thousands of years, it had stood as the unassailable center of galactic power. Now, Earth ships filled the sky above it. Captain Ryan Miller led his team through the grand corridors, past surrendering Imperial guards. Their mission had succeeded beyond all expectations. With their defense systems neutralized and civil war tearing apart their military, the Empire had finally conceded defeat. In the Imperial throne room, High Admiral Zornful knelt in chains. The once proud commander refused to look up as Admiral Harper and Commander Bennett entered. The Imperial surrender has been transmitted to all remaining Loyalist forces, reported an Earth officer. Resistance has ceased in 12 systems. 3 others are still fighting, but they're expected to surrender within days. Harper nodded, then approached Zornfall. You could have avoided this. We warned you. The Admiral finally raised his head, his once bright blue skin now pale with stress. The Empire had never known defeat. How could we have predicted your capabilities? By listening, Bennett said simply. You assumed our warnings were the empty threats of a primitive species. You never considered we might be telling the truth. 1 month later, representatives from 27 species gathered in the United Nations Assembly Hall in New York. The historic meeting was broadcast throughout Earth and to all former Imperial worlds. Chancellor Reed opened the proceedings. Today, we establish the Galactic Council of Free Worlds. No longer will any species dominate others through force. Each world will maintain its sovereignty while contributing to our shared prosperity and security. Commander Bennett, now appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Council, presented the Charter of Rights that would govern the new alliance. Many of its principles had been drawn directly from Earth's own United Nations Charter. Freedom, equality, self-determination, and peace, she read. These are the foundations upon which we build our future together. One by one, representatives came forward to sign the charter. The Saurians, the Mantidians, the Crystalline Luminari, and dozens more. Species that had been enemies under Imperial rule now stood as allies. Caleth, representing a faction of his people who had opposed Imperial expansion, was among the signatories. For 12,000 years, my people believed conquest was our right, he said. Humans have taught us there is another way. As the ceremony concluded, attention turned to justice for those who had led the Empire's aggression. In a special tribunal established by the new council, former Imperial leaders faced charges for crimes against countless species. High Admiral Zornful stood before the judges, his once ornate uniform replaced by simple clothing. I acted according to Imperial law, he stated defiantly. And you will be judged according to universal principles of justice, replied the chief judge, a respected luminary elder. The defense of following orders did not excuse atrocities on Earth, and it will not excuse them here. 6 months after the war ended, Earth had become the center of a new galactic community. Former Imperial technology, freely shared, accelerated human development. In return, Earth's cultural diversity and adaptability provided fresh perspectives to species that had stagnated under Imperial rule. Admiral Harper, now retiring from military service, stood with Captain Miller on the observation deck of the newly completed Galactic Council headquarters in orbit above Earth. Did you ever imagine it would end like this? Miller asked, watching ships from a dozen worlds coming and going peacefully below them. Not in my wildest dreams, Harper admitted. We were preparing for a long war of survival, not to become the cornerstone of a new galactic order. They were interrupted by the arrival of an Imperial prisoner, one of the few being allowed to visit Earth under strict supervision. The former Imperial governor had requested this meeting specifically. "There is something I must understand," the governor said. "You knew your capabilities. You knew you could defeat us. Why give warnings at all? Why not simply strike first and ensure victory?" Harper gazed out at the stars before answering. "Because we've seen enough of war. Earth's history is filled with conflict, and we've learned its cost. We warned you to run not because we feared war, but because we've seen enough of it." He turned to face the former governor directly. "You should have listened." As night fell over Earth, citizens looked up at the stars with new understanding. They were no longer alone in the universe. More importantly, they had helped forge a path toward peace in a galaxy that had known only conquest for millennia.